Today you're going to be taking notes on cell division and how cells divide to make more cells. So go ahead and get your notebooks, open it to your next available page, and write down everything that's in red. And then you will also be creating a foldable, and so throughout this presentation I'll instruct you on when to fill out that foldable. So make sure that you are paying attention to the directions. Okay, real quick I want you to write down in your notebook a paragraph or so answering these questions. Why do we need to replace cells? When has your body ever needed to replace cells? And how do you think this happens? So go ahead and pause the video, answer these 3 questions. Again, there's no right or wrong answer to this. As long as I see that you have written and that it seems thoughtful, then you will get credit. Okay, and then also before we get started, go ahead and pull out that sheet of paper that I gave you for your foldable, and you're going to fold it in half so that it looks like what is shown on the screen, and then you're going to title each flap. So in case you can't read the handwriting here, the first flap says interphase, the second flap says prophase, the third flap says metaphase, the fourth flap says anaphase, and the fifth flap says telophase. Once you've written the title on each flap, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut on the line so that you create each individual flap. So go ahead and pause and then press play when you have completed this task. Okay, so just some interesting facts for you guys. Every hour you lose 30 to 40,000 skin cells. Your skin cells have a lifespan, and so every hour that's how many you lose. In one day you lose 1 million skin cells, and then in 1 year you lose 8 pounds of skin. If you've ever looked at your house and you've seen all that dust in your home, that dust, not completely, but is mostly made up of your and your family's dead skin cells. So that's amazing. But think about it. You lose so many skin cells. What happens when you lose them? Is that it? Are they gone forever, or do you replace them? Well, you obviously replace them, because if you lost that many every hour, every day, every year, you wouldn't have any skin left. So we know that new skin is made to replace those that are lost. Okay, skin cells aren't the only ones with a lifespan. All cells have a lifespan, and they're different. So like your white blood cells, those cells that help protect you against viruses and bacteria, they can only live a few hours, so they really have a short lifespan. Your red blood cells, they live about to be 120 days, give or take. And your nerve and brain cells live as long as you do. So if you live to be 90, that's how long your brain cells are going to last. Of course, unless you do something to kill them and harm them, and then they don't come back. So it's important to take care of your nerve and your brain cells. Okay, so if you look at an average adult human being, we're made up of about 100 trillion cells. Think about it, you didn't start off with that many. When the sperm first met the egg and created that fertilized egg, you started off as one single cell. And then that cell divided and became 2, which divided and became 4, and so forth until it is now the 100 trillion cells that you are today. You didn't have as many cells now as you did when you were 5. Obviously you've grown, your bone cells have grown longer, you've developed more skin, and so you created more cells. Okay, so how does this all happen? How do we get more cells? The way that we get more cells is through a process called mitosis. So go ahead and in the next blank page of your notebook on the top, write mitosis and then define it, which is cell division. Mitosis is when a cell divides to make more cells. So if you look at this animation here, or this picture here, here's a cell. It copies its DNA. And the reason why it copies its DNA is if you're going to make a new cell, that new cell needs instructions, right? And then we don't want to lose DNA in the new cell, so it needs to make a copy. And then it's going to divide, split in half, and make 2 identical cells. So from one cell we form 2. So this is important, again, to make new cells or to replace cells that we've lost. Okay, so again, we do mitosis for growth. That's another reason why it's important. So again, we already discussed this. You started off as one egg cell to the person you are today, to the 100 trillion cells that you are. to replace worn and damaged cells. So like we mentioned, your cells have a lifespan, and so you need to replace those cells that are lost and that have died off. And then you also need to repair damaged cells. So for example, when you cut yourself, not only do you lose skin cells, but you're also going to lose blood cells, right? Those things are gone now. And so the cells surrounding the wound, here's the cut, the cells surrounding the wound realize they get this signal message that they need to divide. They start dividing, and eventually over time they replace the skin that was lost. Okay, so the skin cells surrounding the cut divide to replace those that were lost through mitosis. Okay, but cells don't just split in half when they divide, because if they did, there wouldn't be any cells left. Think about it. If every time a skin cell divided, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and pretty soon you would have no cell because it'd be too small. And so there's a little bit more to cell division than just splitting in half, and so we're going to go over the other steps that are involved in that. Okay, so let's look at a cell and how it goes about actually dividing. And the first thing we need to know is that within each cell, and we've mentioned this in previous class periods, there's a nucleus. So here's the nucleus right here if you look on the right hand side. Within the nucleus you have DNA, and chromosomes contain DNA. So they're just parts of DNA, or chromosomes. And they carry our genetic information. When you are born, you carry 46 chromosomes. You got 23 chromosomes from mom, and you got 23 chromosomes from dad. So you got half of your genetic information from mom, half of it from dad, which is why you might be a mix of the two in your traits. Okay, but so you have chromosomes within your nucleus. Okay, when a cell is going to divide, it needs to copy the chromosomes. It needs to copy the instructions so that the new cell will also have instructions and will also have DNA. Every single cell in your body, it doesn't matter what cell it is, even if they look different and do different things, they all contain the exact same DNA inside the nucleus. Okay? Alright, so again, mitosis begins with a single cell. So if you look on the right, here's my single cell. Within the cell are the chromosomes, half from mom, half from dad. When we need to make a new cell and replace one that's been damaged or lost, you need to make a copy of DNA. So if you see here, this long green strand is now 2 over here, this one is now 2 over here, and so forth and so forth. It made copies of DNA. And that way it can divide, and that way each new cell will get one set of the chromosome. Okay, so then this cell is identical to this one, and they're identical to the original cell. So each new cell has a full set of chromosomes and is identical to the original cell. And again, it's important that it's an identical cell. Mitosis is cell division of your body cells. So it'd be kind of weird if you lost a skin cell and your body made a brand new, different looking skin cell. Or it'd be weird if you lost a blood cell and your body made a different type of blood cell. So it's important that it makes it an identical cell. Okay, so again, the cells will keep dividing until we get to the 100 trillion cells that we are today. Okay, so just like humans, your cells have a life cycle. So we already said they live to a certain age, but they also go through different stages of development. Like we start from babies to teenagers to adults and so forth, where cells kind of have a life cycle too. So we're going to go over that. Okay, but before we go over the life cycle, I want you to watch this mitosis animation. So here's a cell, here's a nucleus. It copies its DNA, like right here. After it copies its DNA, what it's going to do is the nucleus is going to disappear. The chromosomes are going to line up in the middle, and then they're going to get split apart so that when this cell divides, each half will get the exact same DNA. So the chromosomes get split apart, they move to opposite sides of the cell. The cell is going to divide in half, and then now each cell has identical copies of DNA and is identical to each other. And that is cell division, mitosis. Okay? Alright, so if you need to watch that again, feel free to do so. Okay. Now, before a cell can actually divide, though, there are certain things it has to do. So you're going to write this in your foldable. So on the top flap of your foldable where it says interface, please write down the definition here, and then draw this picture underneath the flap. Okay? So an interphase A cell has to grow and copy its DNA before it can divide. Remember, a cell can't just simply split in half, and then those can't just split in half and split in half because the cell would get smaller and smaller and smaller. So before a cell can actually divide, it has to basically double in size so that when it does divide, it'll be the same size as it was before. Okay, so the cell has to grow and the DNA has to be copied. So that is an interphase, okay, the resting phase in the cell. So that's what's happening here. The cell grows. We see different strands of DNA here showing us that the DNA is being copied. Okay, then after interphase is the actual process of the cell dividing. So the next steps are called prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And you need to remember the order of these steps. And to remember the orders of these steps, you need to remember this saying on the bottom here, pass me a taco. The first letter of each word stands for one of the steps of mitosis, of cell division. The P in pass stands for prophase, the M in me stands for metaphase, the A in anaphase stands for the A here, and then the T in taco stands for telophase. So pass me a taco will help you remember the order, or you can just remember PMAT, whatever works for you. Okay, so let's go over the actual steps. So after the cell's gone through interphase, after it's actually grown in size and copied its DNA, now it's ready to divide. And the first step it's going to take to divide is called prophase. So write this down under your flap for prophase. The membrane is going to break down. So if you look at this picture, the dotted line shows that the nucleus is going away. Then the DNA no longer looks like a bunch of strands, like squiggly lines that we saw in the picture before. You can actually start to see the chromosomes in the letter X. So if you look at the picture here, now the chromosomes look like an X, okay? So that's prophase. The next phase is metaphase, and in metaphase, the chromosomes move to the middle. This one's actually really easy to remember because meta starts with an M, middle starts with an M, so the chromosomes move to the middle. So if you look at this picture here, all the chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell, so that is metaphase. And this is what it looks like in a real cell. They're all lined up in the middle. Okay, then the next step is anaphase. In anaphase, the chromosomes get pulled apart to opposite sides of the cell. This is another easy one to remember because anaphase starts with an A and apart starts with an A. So the chromosomes get pulled apart. That's what it looks like in a real cell. The last step is what we call telophase. In telophase, the nucleus starts to come back on each side of the cell, and the chromosomes begin to uncoil, and we start to actually see the separation of two cells. So telophase starts with a T, 2 starts with a T. We start to see two cells dividing here. Okay, and then when the cells actually completely separate, so once this gets cut off here, and we get two individual cells, we call that cytokinesis. And it's called cytokinesis because we cut the cytoplasm. Okay, so again, mitosis makes identical cells and they are clones of each other. So let's look at this again. Here's my cell. The DNA copies, that's interphase. Then we're going to go into prophase, where the nucleus is going to start to disappear. So that's prophase right now. Then metaphase, the cells, the chromosomes are going to line up in the middle. In anaphase, the chromosomes are going to get pulled apart, so that's anaphase. And then in telophase, we start to see two cells. Cytokinesis cuts the two cells, and then now we have two identical cells, and that's mitosis. Okay, so now I need you to fill out this diagram that you have on your paper. These are the steps of cell division. G1, the first step is growth. So this is all interphase here, growth. So G1 is the first phase in interphase where it's going to grow. S stands for DNA replication, when DNA copies itself during interphase. And then the cell grows some more, and we call that G2. So whenever you see a G, think of growth. So this is all interphase. Cell growing and copying itself, we just give each step a name, G1, S, and G2. And then the M phase is the last step of the cell cycle, the cycle of life for the cell. And the M stands for mitosis. So after a cell has grown, copied its DNA, and grown some more, then it will actually divide from prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase and make two new cells. Okay, so this is the life cycle of a cell. These are the steps that the cell goes through. Real quick, see what phase this is. What phase is this? What phase is that? Go ahead and test yourself.